More than 5,000 years ago, its waters gave birth to one of the greatest civilizations ever to arise in the history of the world, ancient Egypt. Ruled for about 3,000 years by kings called pharaohs, the Egyptians crafted intricate artwork, built great stone monuments, and developed the world's first national government. They created the first basic forms of arithmetic, a 365-day calendar, and a kind of writing called hieroglyphics, leaving behind a record of their world in words as well as in stones. The ancient Egyptians built great tombs, many of which still stand today. But the Egyptians were not obsessed with death. Rather, they were so in love with life that they wanted it to go on forever. Paintings in their tombs tell the story of the god Osiris, who was murdered and torn apart by his brother. His wife, the goddess Isis, gathered the pieces of his body and put them back together, and Osiris rose from the dead. The ancient Egyptians believed that because Osiris died and rose again, they too could achieve immortality. Osiris was just one of many gods that the ancient Egyptians worshipped. Their supreme deity was Amun-Ra, the sun god. Anubis, the god of the dead, presided over the important work of embalming. The Egyptians believed in life after death, and they tried to preserve the bodies of their dead for use in the next life. When a wealthy or powerful person died, they carefully embalmed the body and wrapped it in linen bandages to create a mummy. The mummy went into an elaborate coffin covered with magic spells, and the coffin was placed inside a tomb. Into the tomb went anything that the deceased would need when his soul returned to his body, like beautiful furniture, jewelry, or even a massive boat that a pharaoh could sail on the Nile eternally. The Great Pyramids at Giza were constructed to house the tombs of three powerful pharaohs who reigned from about 2550 to 2470 BC. Without the help of modern technology, workers piled up over 6 million limestone and granite blocks, some weighing more than 40 tons. A new block was put in place every 2 minutes, and the entire project was completed in just 80 years. Each worker labored to ensure immortality for the pharaoh, and each achieved his own kind of immortality in the monuments that remain In this small town in Provence, they're gathered to give thanks for their blessings. Saint Antoine give us truffles, the villagers of Riche-Ranche sing at the annual truffle mass. They're even willing to pay for it. The collection plate is filling up, and not just with cash. Selling for hundreds of dollars a pound wholesale, these so-called black diamonds are among the world's most expensive fungus. Riche-Ranche means rich earth, and they're not kidding. This is truffle country. Nearly a third of France's crop of black truffles goes through this town's market, up to $180,000 in a single day.
It's a most important market of truffle in France, so if you want to buy some truffle, you have to be in Riche-Ranche to buy something. So for the sellers, it's the same thing. If they want to sell well, they have to come to Riche-Ranche.
In winter, small towns of Provence are doing big business. A lot of local farmers moonlight as truffle hunters. And here, in the back seats of black luxury cars, France's truffle brokers wheel and deal. One small bag equals hundreds of US dollars. It's a cash business. No taxes. France's gourmet food companies buy truffles from the brokers and ship many of them to restaurants in the United States and Japan. The best truffles look like this, deep black with the lacing of white veins through them. While demand is high, the supply is shrinking. Fewer and fewer truffles are coming in, but no one's sure exactly why. Truffles grow underground, around tree roots, but they're fickle. Agriculture, development, weather, and deforestation are just some of the culprits blamed for the decline. Jade is a trained sniffer dog. It takes a sensitive nose to find truffles. Not just any dog will do. Here's how Jade does it. For today, at least, there's no truffle shortage here. When the truffler's prayers are answered, it's a treat for everyone. It has the look and the sound of Istanbul. But this Turkish community is in Germany, in a country learning how to prosper with the diversity it didn't want. After the devastation of World War II, Germany needed help to rebuild and so invited Turkish guest workers. Both Germans and Turks believe the arrangement was temporary. Turks like to say that the Germans sent for workers but got human beings. And the human beings became a vibrant community. 200,000 in Berlin, 2 million in all of Germany. A third generation of German Turks is now being born, but many Germans still think of them as foreigners.
This is one reason why these people kept their ties to the home country and why they still identify themselves as Turks.
Turkish fears grew when the Berlin Wall fell, and the government focused on reunification rather than the needs of minorities.
So Turks say the wall came down, but it came down on the heads of the Turks.
There is a rich Turkish cultural tradition in Germany, but though the cultural border between peoples here has grown more distinct, both Germans and Turks are trying to bridge it.
I believe that if we give young children the opportunity to know something about the other culture, we won't have young Muslim fundamentalistic believers which would take Kalashnikov and go into the streets.
This is a pioneering public school called Rixdorfer. Students from both cultures are taught side by side in both languages. The costs are higher than average, but so is the success.
If you put money in the small kids, in the younger kids, you don't have much problems when they are older.
Marion Burning hopes that what she sees here is the shape of the future.
And they don't see the difference between the Turkish and the German. And so they have no problems with foreigners. They are not foreigners. They are kids.
Once upon a time, the Parthenon looked like this. A temple to the goddess Athena. It was a symbol of culture and refinement. A beautifully sculpted marble frieze banded the Parthenon above the columns. And so this temple stood for 2,000 years. But in 1687, it was blown up during a war between Venice and the Ottoman Empire, which was then occupying Greece. The Parthenon lay in ruins. A century later, Lord Elgin, the British ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, received what he construed as permission to remove the marble friezes and take them home to England. His partisans say he saved these stunning artworks from vandals who were pulling them apart. Without him, they say, the marbles wouldn't exist. But to his detractors, Lord Elgin himself was the vandal, who cut up the frieze into sections so they could be shipped more easily to England.
We have a piece in London, and we have other fragments from the same piece, let's say the heads of the figures, in Athens.
Dimitrios Pandermalis heads the organization that's building Greece's new Acropolis Museum, and he wants the marbles back permanently.
They symbolize the highest moment of classical art in ancient Greece. They belong to the Parthenon itself.
But the British Museum is equally emphatic that this is not going to happen. As far as the British Museum is concerned, it has legal title to the marbles. Moreover, it has a mission as a museum of all world cultures.
You can also uniquely see the huge inspiration that these objects have had on subsequent world cultures and how they have become now masterpieces of art and masterpieces of Greek civilization.
But Professor Pandermalis isn't buying that argument. The story he wants to tell is depicted in the frieze itself, which shows an important Athenian religious procession. But only about 50% of the original frieze survives today, and of that 50%, about half are in London, and the other half are in Athens. He believes all the surviving pieces should be exhibited together, because seen together, they have a narrative. And the British public seems to agree with him. For now, Professor Pandermalis intends to fill in the gaps of his frieze with copies of the British Museum's frieze, so that visitors can have a more complete vision of the procession that's depicted.
We'll paint the copies with special color to make differentiation. Of course, our target is that we replace one day the copies with the originals.
And he's hopeful they can work something out. And perhaps this great symbol of civilization will ultimately inspire a solution that benefits everyone.